everybody. Welcome to Monday Morning Must-Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfeld, and another tumultuous week in the book. Start things off on Monday with what was a great day, and all of a sudden, tail end of the week, just erased everything. And the things I think you really want to keep your eyes on for the upcoming trading week are the dollar index, which came into an overhead supply right around 100, and of course that 10-year yield. The higher that 10-year goes, the more it constricts the market. Same thing with that dollar index. But let's start things off with our earnings calendar. We do have 376 companies reporting earnings this week, and there are a couple names that you might identify in here. On Monday, we start things off with a quiet one. That's going to be Dollar Tree. Tuesday brings you Lululemon, Oklo, and DocuSign. Wednesday, you've got Micron Technology, Jabil Circuit, and General Mills. Thursday brings you Alibaba, Accenture, FedEx, and Darden Restaurants. And finally, rounding out the week with a Carnival Cruise Line. Now, this week, big news, real big news. It's about central banks. Normally, during a week, you might get one central bank from around the world reporting. Sometimes we go a couple of weeks without one. This week, I believe we have 6. I'll keep track as we go here, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 central banks reporting this week, and some of them are actually relatively surprising with the expectations about what rates may do. For those of you who are Forex traders, pay attention. This will be a wild week for all of you in Forex. Let's start things off on our Monday. That's right, kicking things off early on Monday. That's going to be the Reserve Bank of Australia coming out with a rate announcement at 11:30 p.m. on Monday evening, so late in the night on Monday. This is the surprise to me. Right now, they're at 3.85%. They're talking about a 25 basis point increase, right? We hear so much about countries cutting. Well, Australia's gone, no, mate, we're going to go to the upside here. Maybe a little bit of a raise. Yeah, a raise of 25 basis points expected there for Australia. Next is going to be the Bank of Canada. Our neighbors to the north, right now, no big surprise there. Wednesday at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time, they are expected to keep rates right where they're at 2.25%. And the same thing goes for the Bank of Japan. That's also going to happen Wednesday at some point in time. They always put tentative on their announcements because it's somewhat random, but they're at 75 basis points. So right now, that's 3 central banks that will be reporting this week with regards to their rate statements. Oh, but don't worry. We've got more to go. However, I want to do things in chronological order here. Let's keep some discipline and order to structure of our Monday Morning Must-Knows. So let's keep things on the Wednesday calendar since that's where we are at. We'll dive into the Producer Price Index. Now, this has been really interesting because we've seen the unemployment rate start to slowly move up. You've seen inflation numbers start to move up. And of course, with the huge move we had in oil, it's up 100% since the beginning of the year. That is going to add some to the inflation numbers. Now, do we see that in the Producer Price Index numbers that are coming out on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time? Right now, the expectations are we're going to come out at 0.3, which would be great, right? That would be inflation is under control. But how many of you really believe that to be the case? I am not in that camp. I would be surprised if it came out at 0.3. If it comes out at 0.3, I've got to call shenanigans and say this data is manipulated. Of course, many people believe the data is manipulated. Anyway, we'll see. I don't believe we're going to see the impact from the oil surge for the next couple of months. My guess is as we get out into maybe May and June, then we'll really start to see CPI, PPI, and core PCE price index numbers pop, and that could wreak havoc on the markets. All right, let's get back to our central banks because there are so many of them to talk about. We already got 3 in the books, but the big daddy, oh yes, the wapple, is going to be the FOMC statement. That is the U.S. Federal Reserve will be coming out with their announcement. That's going to happen Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Right now, the expectations are that we're going to come out at 3.75 with no change. Now, what's interesting here for those of you who have been following along on rate increases and cuts for the United States, the expectations were that we're going to get at least 2 more rate cuts this year. But now, all of a sudden, this inflation talk has started to change that perspective. If you look now, the statistics are only like a 30% chance that we're going to get 1 rate cut this year. I, for one, am in the camp of, I believe we're going to start to see some rate increases the longer that this war with Iran goes on, and hopefully it doesn't continue to escalate much bigger, but that's going to put a big damper on inflation numbers. We shall see if I'm right down the road. All right, now let's move on to the most important part of this, which isn't the rate announcement. Pretty much everybody knows it's going to be 3.75. It's what does Jerome Powell say after? When he gets grilled by all the reporters from the different media outlets, what does he say? Does he slip? Does he say something here that could let the cat out of the bag, if you will? So that's our 4th bank reporting. But wait, I've got more. That's right. That's 4 already. We've got the Swiss National Bank reporting Thursday at 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's going to be a no change there, staying at 0. So there's your 5th bank. Number 6 is the Bank of England. They're going to stay the same as well at 3.75%. That's Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And finally, our 7th, I was wrong, our 7th bank of the week will be Thursday. Thursday, a huge day for you Forex traders. 2.15% is where the ECB is at right now. Expectations are we're going to stay at 2.15%. That's Thursday, 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time. So a pretty wild week with regards to central bank announcements. There's a couple earnings in there that are important. I do think the PPI will be one to watch, but not as important as it will be the next couple of months when the oil prices impact those inflationary data. So keep your eye on the central banks. That is the big stuff for the week, particularly the United States. That, my friends, is your Monday Morning Must Know. We'll see you next week.